Hello and welcome. My name is Kim Strazar, and on behalf of the Johnston County Nursery Marketing Association, thank you for joining us today. I have a little cheat sheet to keep me on task, so forgive me for reading, but we know everybody wants to get to the plants, so I'm just going to do a little housekeeping here, and then we'll get started. Again, our members missed everybody at our face-to-face live show in August, but we're thrilled that you're joining us virtually today. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, all of our generous sponsors. Without their support, this wouldn't be possible, especially our platinum sponsors, Pacific Organics, Harrell's, and Wyatt Quarles, and our gold sponsor, Florikan. Additionally, we are able to offer you this education free of charge because of our sponsor support and the support of the JC Raulston Arboretum. And this presentation would not be possible at all without Mark and his great team there. And to give our support in return, Samson Nursery, one of our member nurseries, is donating $10 to the Arboretum for everyone who participates today. So for more details on that and to support the Arboretum yourself, please check a virtual swag bag that you received in your email this morning.
It's always a pleasure to do this, although I miss being wheeled around on a cart around the hunt center over at the fairgrounds, and miss seeing all of my colleagues from Johnston County and the area during the event. Since I've got a deadline, I'm going to get on it pretty quickly. So our first plant today is Magnolia Serendipity. Magnolia Serendipity. This is we got this plant from Carroll's Plant Center. This is a great little evergreen magnolia. It was one that was actually came to the Arboretum unnamed and was such a good plant that we finally convinced the person who originated it, Bobby Green down in Alabama, to give it a name. It makes a kind of a rounded shrub. We think of magnolias often as upright plants, but this is really a rounded shrub that'll go in about 10 years. It can get 12 feet by 12 feet, maybe a little bit larger. And in spring, usually in April on into May, it will just be loaded with flowers all down the stems. Unlike a typical magnolia that only has them at the ends of the branches, it'll have these creamy white flowers all down the stems. Really, really showy. When it's in flower, it is one of the most asked about plants in the Arboretum. I've got a terrible sense of smell, so I think it's somewhat fragrant, but not super fragrant. Has not suffered any damage for us. We've had it planted out since 2012 and have not had any problems with damage over the winters. Just been a really, really reliable, gorgeous plant. You can keep it pruned back if you want. Prune it right after it flowers if you want to keep it smaller, but it's great as, you know, kind of a big wide hedge, something to block the view of a neighbor, something like that. Really spectacular plant. Magnolia Serendipity from Carroll's Plant Center.
Mark?
Yes.
Carolyn asked if that plant's going to lose its foliage in the late winter and early spring and then resprout.
No, it is fully evergreen. In a really cold winter, it'll lose some leaves, but for the most part, it has stayed pretty well solidly evergreen for us here in Raleigh. All right. Here we have Thuya Virginian. I always get that Virginian. I always want to say Virginianum. I don't know why. Thuya Virginian. So this is a fairly recent introduction from Plantation Springs Nursery in Suffolk, Virginia. It is kind of an improved green giant. It's a quick grower. It stays full all the way up. Doesn't get that long tip like green giant often gets. The original plant has grown up pretty quickly, but only to about 15 feet or so. So it's not quite as big as Green Giant will ultimately get. I got to cheat and remember who gave it to us. This is from Old Courthouse Nursery. We got this through Virginia Arborvitae. But so about 15 feet tall, a little less than half that in width at the bottom, maybe 6-7 feet, in a nice pyramidal shape. It is somewhat deer resistant, and the originator says that out in the field, this gets very few bagworm issues with it, while Green Giant that's growing right next to it will be loaded with bagworm. So, you know, that's certainly something that's would be beneficial. It makes an excellent screen, makes an excellent hedge. Easy grower. Once you get it in the ground, get it established, it grows off really well and stays nice and dense. So just a real winner of a plant. And again, this is from Old Courthouse. Okay, got a trio of roses for you here. This one is Easy Elegance, My Girl, which came from Fairview Nursery. The Easy Elegance series, we've been real pleased with them. We've grown several of these. This grows to about 5 feet by 5 feet. Has really pink buds that open up into these really full doubles, and it'll actually be even more doubled than this so that you barely even see the stamens inside. Really good disease resistance, really easy care. Black spot resistant. It's just an excellent plant. It doesn't take a whole lot of pruning to keep it nice and dense shape like that. So it's a really good shrub rose. Flowers very heavily. This one's not in complete flower here, but there are other buds in here right now. But really showy plant. We haven't grown My Girl, but we've grown some other the Easy Elegance plants, and they've all been very good for us. You can do them as cut flowers, but they don't have really long stems on them, so they don't work as well that way. But tough plant. All right. The newest in the plant that put nurserymen's kids through college. This is the Petite Knockout Rose. So this is a true dwarf knockout, so it has all the great attributes of a knockout rose in terms of being very disease resistant, very tough. Then it gets these bright red kind of semi-double flowers, nice small sized, and be in proportion to the plant. Haven't grown it for really long, but I'm imagining it's going to get about 2 to 3 feet tall and wide. It really does flower very heavily. This was dropped off at our garden a little bit earlier than some of the other ones, and we put it in a shade house, so it wasn't getting as much sun as it would have liked. Came from Powell's Nursery, and it really is great in a container because it's nice dwarf, great in the ground. You know, plant them along plant them along the walkway or something like that. Fantastic plants, and like I said, tough like the knockout roses are that we know they are. So good plant. All right, next one, Sun Rosa Red from Casey Nursery. This is another really good plant. This is out of the Gardener's Confidence series, and is another compact rose. Grows to about 24-30 inches tall, maybe a little bit wider. Really heavy flower. It just keeps putting flowers out kind of nonstop. Again, good disease resistance. You know, even where you got, you know, high heat, high humidity. I like this one that the new growth comes out really nice, dark before opening up these red flowers that fade a little bit to more of a pink, but you know, they do look like nice little roses, and it keeps going and going, and you know, just right here, this one little piece I'm looking at, you know, you've got an open flower, you've got one that's starting to show color, you've got tight buds still, and new buds just coming out. So it's going to keep flowering and flowering and flowering. They say it has a mild tea rose fragrance. Mild, we'll put it that. I don't have a good sense of smell, so maybe it's stronger, but not a great one, maybe. But Casey Nursery, Sun Rosa Red Rose, really good. I haven't grown many of the Sun Rosa line, but this thing is a really good one.
Mark, we had a belated question for the previous row, the little dwarf one. Can you repeat the mature height and width again?
This is going to grow about 2 to 3 feet tall and wide. Let me see what it says. This says 18 inches tall, so yeah, 3 feet's about right. You guys double whatever they tell you on the labels. No, I don't know. I haven't grown it long enough to actually have experience with how big it grows. My experience with most miniature roses is, you know, about 2 feet is usually a pretty good guesstimate for it. But I have not grown it long enough to be able to say that with assurance. So tag says 18 inches. You can take it from there. All right. From Smith's Nursery, we have a little wax myrtle. This one is Strawberry Shortcake dwarf wax myrtle from Smith's Nursery. Gets that name because it's short, so you get shortcake. Strawberry because it was growing out in strawberry fields at Smith's Nursery. So that's how you get that. So this is one they introduced. It's a really good dwarf. It's got good color. Some of the dwarf ones have more of a I don't know, silvery kind of cast to them that can make the plants look kind of washed out, especially in full sun. This has a nice, foliage. Like a lot of plants that are very aromatic, tends to be deer resistant. This guy's only going to get, you know, a couple feet tall, 3 to 4 feet tall. Let's see if he told me how. Yeah, 3 to 4 feet tall, tall and wide. Like all wax myrtles, it's very, very tolerant. They can go from sun to pretty good shade, and still it'll loosen up in shade, but you can grow it there. Very, very drought tolerant. They'll take some, you know, some short periods of inundation with water even, so very, very tough. What's really exciting about this plant to me is it's a female form, so you get the fruits on there, which are great wildlife plants as well, wildlife food. So it's got a few little fruits on here, but that's oh yeah, oh actually it's got a ton in there now that I'm looking. Ton of fruit in there. It's got a great fragrance, got that bayberry smell. So Strawberry Shortcake, 3 to 4 feet tall and wide from Smith's Nursery. Great wax myrtle. Another dwarf. Seems like last year when I did this, everybody had upright tall plants. This year we're going dwarfer. This is one of the choice plants through the Johnston County Nursery Association and the Raulston Arboretum. This is Viburnum obovatum Raulston hardy. It's a nice little dwarf viburnum, native to the southeast. It's we started looking at this species of viburnum in 2007 after the 100-year drought we had. Viburnums took a big hit. Viburnum obovatum was unfazed at all by the drought. And so the species is kind of a rangy, ugly plant. It's kind of open and loose and big. But this dwarf one we had, which is different from other dwarfs out there, made a nice low mound. It's at its peak flowering in about May. It'll be covered in flowers, but it has flowers on it just about 12 months of the year. Everybody who tries it seems to want more of it. I noticed that the renovation on campus for the Hunt Library, the landscape renovation, they planted a bunch of this out. UNC has planted a bunch of this out. It's hard for the nurserymen to keep them in stock. This is from Curran's Nursery, and you can see it just makes a nice little mound. It can sucker a little bit to form kind of broader mounds, which is great for if you're planting it out as a mass, kind of as a tall ground cover. That's perfect for it, but it's also easy to keep it trimmed into a perfect little meatball if you want to in the landscape, because you just got to run a hedge trimmers over it. In the winter, the leaves will turn kind of plum purple. In a very cold winter, it can go about maybe halfway deciduous, but it usually retains most of its foliage. So just really good plant, heavy bloomer. Pollinators love it. Excellent plant. Curran's Nursery, Raulston Viburnum. All right. Another plant from NC State. This is Elysium Scorpio from Sampson Nursery. This is an introduction from one of the great plant breeders of our time, Tom Ranney, and his team at the Mills River Horticultural Research Station up in near Asheville. Elysium is a fantastic plant, star anise or star bush. It's an evergreen plant. There are native North American ones and Asian ones. There's a tropical one that we actually get the anise that you cook with, star anise, but you don't want to eat this one. It's not edible. But one of the issues with Elysium is they get really big. So Tom and his team managed to shrink down Elysium. This grows about 4 to 5 feet tall and wide. It reblooms really well. Some Elysium will only bloom once a year. This really reblooms well throughout the season, so you get a continual show of these very, very showy flowers. Perhaps best of all, this is about as close to a deer-proof shrub that you can get. So you get a nice 4 to 5 foot rounded evergreen plant. Deer resistant. I never say deer proof about anything. Highly deer resistant. Reblooms over a long period. And somebody told me, a homeowner told me, they actually like to cut the branches on this when it's in fruit, because it has those kind of little, if you know what star anise fruit looks like, they look similar to that. They use them in arrangements and things like that. Easy plant, grows in sun or shade. In full sun, the leaves can get a little bit light green, but not burn. And in more shade, they'll be nice dark green like you see here. Just an easy all-around plant, great for landscapes, great for planting out as hedges, as accents, as masses. Great plant. Elysium Scorpio from Sampson Nursery. There is also a white flowered one that's pretty much everything I just said about this you can say about the white flowered one. That one's called Orion. So Scorpio starbush. All right. Chris, I may need you to move the camera. Okay. Here we have Japanese holly, Ilex pranata, Excelsa Schwobel. Schwobel has at least one extra E in there that you wouldn't expect. So it's also called Schwobel's upright. It's actually about a 1950s release from Schwobel Nursery in Pennsylvania. It's one of those plants that's been around for a long time, but either went out of fashion. I don't know if it was much in fashion in the late 50s and 60s or not. But if it was in fashion, it certainly had gone out, and it's come back around again, which is great because it's always been a fantastic plant. So it's very upright shrub. You can see that. It grows very nice and dense. the foliage is larger and glossier than some of the other upright ones like steeds and things like that. It's a good replacement for, upright boxwood, great for, very formal plantings, great for hedging. It'll grow pretty tall given time, but it's really easy to maintain, at 4 foot, 8 foot, something like that. You can maintain it really well, and it'll stay very nice and narrow, just 2 to 3 feet wide. And maybe if you get up to 8 feet, maybe it's a little more like 4 feet, but really, really good plant. Very tough, goes very dense. One of those plants that has gotten overlooked and shouldn't have been because it's so good. All right, this is not going to show off this plant as well as I would like. This is a new introduction from the JC Raulston Arboretum from Denny Werner's breeding program. This is, hold on, let me go back. Excelsa Schwobel holly is from Weathington Farms. And I think they wanted to even deliver a bigger one, so you can probably get them much bigger if you want. Sorry about that. So going back to this red bud, this is Flamethrower Red Bud from the JC Raulston Arboretum and Denny Werner's breeding program, supplied by Panther Creek Nursery. Even though it's a JC Raulston introduction, back in the spring, I put in a request, an order for myself, a personal request for 5 of these from Panther Creek because it's hard to come by, even if you're the person who introduced it, the organization that introduced it. This is not the time to really show off a Flamethrower, but the way it grows, it comes out, and this is an actual branch from Flamethrower. It comes out dark burgundy like you would get from burgundy hearts or Merlot or forest pansy. But then in full sun, it'll transition from that dark purple to a kind of coppery orange, then to chartreuse, and then to green. It is absolutely spectacular. Right now, it's not the best time to see it. We've had it sitting in some shade. I don't know if it was grown under shade. It doesn't hold as good a color as I'd like in a container in shade. I will say I have a small plant in a container at home, an ornamental container in my front yard. I don't water much. It dropped most of its leaves. It's now flushed back out. Now we've got some rain and it looks beautiful. And I will tell you, it's one of the only times somebody has just walking down the street, some neighbor from up the street came by and looked at it in my yard and said, "Is that Flamethrower Red Bud?" So there's already some name recognition with the general public, which is hard to get with plants. So Flamethrower, it is just this constant kind of kaleidoscope of color. Really, really spectacular plant. It's a pretty quick grower as well. What I'm finding, it's putting out some great growth. It's one of those that the first year you plant it, that first spring, it'll blow you away. You'll think this is amazing. The second year, you'll be, just think that it couldn't get any better. And then by that third year, it is the statement piece out there. I got some pictures of this growing in the field, kind of the first crop of these, just acres of it, and holy cow, there is nothing prettier than that. So this Panther Creek Flamethrower Red Bud. All right. And this was unintentional, but another release from the JC Raulston Arboretum. This one a couple of decades ago, but still a great, great plant. This is Chindu Viburnum from Adcock's Nursery. And they were another one that wanted to send me an even bigger plant. I think maybe they wanted to send me a 45-gallon plant. And I said, no, please, my back can't take it. So Chindu Viburnum was a viburnum collected by JC Raulston, Dr. JC Raulston, in South Korea. It is a large, upright, evergreen shrub. Gets white flowers in the spring, followed by red berries. It really gets best berries if there's more than one selection of this type of viburnum awabuki. Some years the fruit display is just spectacular. Some years it's not as great. You don't get many fruits, but no matter what, it is an amazing, amazing evergreen shrub or tree. The original one at the Arboretum we've let grow up, is quite tall. They can get 20, 30 feet tall probably, but they can also be kept pruned very, very well. There's some outside some office buildings that I've been going to for the 14 years that I've lived in Raleigh. When I started going there, they were pruned into a hedge about 4 feet tall. Last time I went there, in the before times, back in January, February, it was still about 4 feet tall. They just keep it pruned that way, so very, very amenable. But otherwise, as a young plant, it'd be nice pyramidal like this and just easy. Doesn't have a lot of issues at all. Tough plant.
We have a question going back to flamethrower, Mark.
Yep.
Lynn would like to know if you can grow in a container for quite a while.
Yes, red buds in general are very amenable to growing in container. They are, if they dry out during the summer, they will drop a lot of their leaves. But you got to really be tough on them to kill them in the container. As long as you get some water on them, occasionally they'll be all right. Flamethrower, so far in my experience, you get the best color out in full sun. It's a little more muted in the shade, but I'm seeing with a plant in the shade that we got growing that it's second and third year color is getting better, even in pretty good shade. Any other questions on these plants? All right, we're gonna switch the power back over to Kim, I believe, and we're gonna look at some slides, and I will continue to talk about them.
You know what? I probably need to change that same camera at you.
Okay. This is a great plant from Taylor's Nursery. Purple pillar hibiscus, also known as Gantini Santiago, which sounds very Italian, but this is actually a Belgium introduction. Purple pillar hibiscus is a really nice upright grower. It'll grow, if you let it, it'll grow to about 15 feet tall, maybe 3 feet wide. It's a good rebloomer with lavender flower with kind of that darker center eye. Sometimes it can be a little semi-doubled, but that doesn't seem to be really consistent. I haven't heard anything about whether it is fertile and will set seed. I looked around for that. I haven't seen any seed on the plants that I've grown, and so I'm not 100% sure about that. But most new introductions are sterile or close to sterile, so my guess is it probably does not produce many seeds, which can be a problem with them. But planted out in full sun, they're tough as nails. You can grow them from South Georgia up to, I don't know, somewhere really cold. They can really take it. So Taylor's Nursery, Purple Pillar Hibiscus. All right, Kim, do you have the power or do I?
She does.
You do, okay, good. Loropetalum chinense variety Rumor Crimson Fire. This is a first editions, one of the first edition series, and is a really good, truly a dwarf Loropetalum, purple leaf Loropetalum, from Five Oaks Nursery. Has really good dark purple red foliage, grows about 4 or so feet tall, a little bit wider, 5, maybe 6 feet wide. Flowers, from spring off and then off and on throughout much of the season with bright red pink flowers, more red than most other loropetalums. I don't know if I would call it true red, but I guess with some of the roses that we looked at that they call true red, maybe so, true plant red. But really good grower, really good doer. If you want one for kind of another one for tall ground cover, if you're planting out masses, it's great for that. It's great as a specimen, kind of edging beds where you have just, taller things behind it, works well. Very good plant. Like all the red leaf loropetalums, it loses some of that in the shade. But the new growth will always be that really deep, deep red. All right, Jericho Farms, Kindred Spirit Oak. This is that same cross that Regal Prince came out of, the first really upright fastigiate oak. This is a cross between our native swamp white oak, Quercus bicolor, and the fastigiate English oak, Quercus rover, from fastigiata. There have been a lot of these that have been released. Some have been great. Some maybe are great somewhere, but not here. Kindred Spirit has been a really, really good one for us. It keeps that kind of Quercus bicolor, the white backside to the leaf, stays very upright. The leaves hold up well even into the end of summer, which has been our problem with some of the other selections, is that by July, August, September in the landscape here, they just kind of peter out. It can grow to 40 feet tall and about 8 or 10 feet wide over time, but it's going to take it a bit to get there. But great for an exclamation point, great for street trees or parking lot trees where you don't have a lot of space. Great for an alley. You can really do some really dramatic things with it. Fall color, I find to be variable on all of these. I have not, I guess I haven't completely paid attention to Kindred Spirit in particular for fall color. Most of them get between a really nice burgundy to a russet, and it kind of seems to depend on the year, which way they go. It's nice, but it's not going to knock your socks off. But it's also nice to have a 40-foot oak that you can break the leaves up in a reasonable amount of time. From Jericho Farms. Glad they didn't dig one and bring it here. It'd be too big for me for sure. All right, another oldie but goodie from Swift Creek Nursery, Windmill Palm, Trachycarpus fortunii. I'm sure most of us are familiar with it, but it is still one of those great plants. One of the first things I planted when I moved into my house, because having a palm is always cool, and all these people moving down to North Carolina from up north, they're always amazed that they can grow a palm tree, especially one with a trunk. Trachycarpus, once you get it in the ground and it starts going, they're really actually pretty quick growers. They'll form a trunk very quickly compared to most other palms, even ones that we can't grow here, and will ultimately make a really nice statement. I love them. People plant them out in full sun, which is great, but they actually do very well in pretty shaded spots, and they look very cool in kind of woodland type areas with some windmill palms scattered throughout there. So very, very cool. All right, Murray. That's the kind of name you name your kid, or your great uncle's name is Murray. I don't know exactly who Murray is, but this Leyland Cypress, named from Murray, is it's quick growing Leyland Cypress. Seems to be tougher than most of the old forms out there, stays denser. Reports are, and this is something I can't verify personally, but reports are with age and size, it holds up to wind better than a lot of the other old Leylands. It doesn't blow over when it gets to be tall. It'll grow up, 40 feet by 15 feet easily. Really nice hedge. If you need something a little bit larger than that Thuya Virginian, this will be your go-to guy, a little taller, a little wider. It's great if you got to get some size and you got to get it fast. You put one of these in and let her rip, and it'll really grow. Florida Sunshine Elysium. I already mentioned how great Elysium or anise shrub is in terms of its deer resistance. This is one that has yellow gold foliage. Really is best in a little bit of shade. It'll burn, and it can burn in full sun unless you really keep it hydrated. One of the knocks on this when it first came out was young plants can be a little floppy in a pot. Watson's is growing them larger, and you see they've cut it back. So you go a little larger, you cut it back, and it makes it nice and sturdy and a good grower. It flushes out yellow and goes kind of pale green chartreusey over the summer, and then it gets golder and golder and golder as you go into fall, and it really glows over the winter. So it really, that's when it really pops in my mind. People buy it in the spring when it's bright yellow and they put it in, and sometimes they kind of forget about it, and then all of a sudden they walk out and there's just this glorious display that'll be there all winter long. And it's interesting, in spring, the new growth is kind of this sharp, bright yellow green, kind of an acid yellow green, and then it really warms in fall to this kind of more ripe banana, buttery yellow color that's really warm for over the summer, over the winter. It does flower. It's got it's Elysium parviflorum, so it has small yellowish, whitish, greenish flowers in the spring. You really can't see them because of the foliage at that time. So don't grow it for its flowers, but grow it for its deer resistance, its size. It's really in 7 years 5 to 6 feet tall and wide if you don't prune it at all. As it gets bigger, the stems get really nice pink, so you get the yellow, the new growth especially. The stems will be pink on there, so it's a pretty cool plant in that way. And deer resistant. What more can you say? All right.
Want to mention nursery, Mark? It's on the screen, though.
It's on the screen, yeah. Yeah, I'm not trying to not talk about the nurseries who have these. They're on the screen, so that's why I wanted to make sure I was saying that for everybody else, for all the other plants. We've got another evergreen magnolia where I talked about Magnolia Serendipity being this wide plant, kind of rounded shrub. What we have here in Stellar Ruby is the exact opposite. This thing shoots straight up, very nice and narrow. One of the narrowest evergreen magnolias I've seen. It grows 15, 20 feet tall. I don't know what its upper limit is. It's still a pretty new plant, but really only about 3.5 feet wide. It gets very dark ruby, burgundy flowers in the leaf axils all up and down the leaves. So you get this great evergreen column that's great as an exclamation point for a formal planting, for a tight hedge. If you don't have a lot of space, that also flowers with pretty fragrant flowers. This is it has banana shrub in its lineage, so it's got pretty nice flowers. I don't know how cold it'll take it and still hold on to its foliage. I've only really seen it growing over the last 3 years, and the last 2 winters we were zone 9 in Raleigh, so it's hard to say. Hardiness, not going to be a problem at all, but it may drop more leaves when it gets colder, but I just can't, I can't answer that for sure. Scarlet curls willow, another one of those plants that I love to see being grown. There's so many fantastic plants that are grown and kind of come in and out of fashion. Scarlet curls willow is a gorgeous big weeping willow with contorted branches and leaves. If you don't prune it, it can get to 40 feet tall and 25 feet wide. But you can keep it pruned back, and actually that's how I like it better in landscapes. You see McLam is growing it as a single trunked tree and then having that top one there, which is great. Sometimes they're grown multi-stemmed and they can get wild and woolly that way. If you do cut it back and just cut it back pretty hard to where it's stopped, it'll put out all new growth in the spring. Be beautiful. Over the winter, the branches turn really bright red. If you let it go, as the branches get older, they'll go from red to more of a yellow. If you cut it back hard in late winter, it'll push out all new growth. It'll be really screaming bright red for that first winter, and then you can cut it back every year, every couple years, whatever, or just let it grow. But it makes a really cool kind of accent piece in the garden. And if it's planted in a residential area, people will come by and ask if they can cut stems so they can put them in arrangements and things as well. People love it for that. But really neat plant, Scarlet curls willow, and easy. Plant it in regular garden soil, it's fine. Plant it in a wet spot, damp spot, it'll be fine. You can plant it in a rain garden because it will it'll grow just fine while it's dry in there, and then 2 feet of water come in and sit for 3 days. It'll be just fine after that as well. Just don't put it on your septic tank, septic field, because you can run into some problems with that, with the roots if you do that. But such an easy plant to grow and really striking in the landscape. Okay, Buxus microphylla sprinter. When I first saw the name for this one out of Prudent Winters, I was trying to figure out if it was a ground covering boxwood. It is not. It's a kind of a dwarf to mid-size one. Grows to about 4 feet or so in 10 years, maybe just a little bit wider, 5 feet or so. But it grows off really fast. So in a container for a grower, it grows. It really makes a saleable plant pretty quickly. And when you plant that, like a 3 gallon, like you see there in the landscape, it doesn't just sit there for a long time. It really pushes out and grows and fills in quickly. So that's often an issue that people have. Seems to be pretty good resistance to a lot of the boxwood issues, especially leaf miner. It holds color well during the winter as well. So I think it's going to be a winner. Have not grown it for very long, so I'm relying on some other people's experience with it to say for sure.
I believe that is our last plant, Mark.
That was our last plant. Oh, well, fantastic.
Comment that you made.
Yep, Chris.
A lot of these people in attendance are home gardeners. Where could they get the plants from?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I know since we did this online, usually we're pretty strictly green industry professionals, and I know there are some homeowners in this since Johnston County folks were generous enough to open it up to more people. So we've mentioned a lot of nurseries here. Almost all of the nurseries except Fairview and Johnston Nursery are wholesale only. So you go to your favorite garden center. The independent garden centers are great about tracking down plants for you. Go to them. You can tell them that hey, I saw, this great dwarf wax myrtle called Strawberry Shortcake, and it comes from Smith's Nursery, or, Worthington Farms or wherever, and your independent garden center should be able to track down those plants for you very easily and get them for you. Please don't go to the wholesale growers and try and shop retail with them. You need to have a business license, that shows you're a professional to do that. And, they are busy enough trying to keep plants alive and businesses going and things selling without being interrupted by homeowners for that. So thank you, Chris. Are there any other questions? I'd love to answer anything else about this or anything.
You have the question window open?
Yeah.
I think that's this one.
Let's see.
Looks like we had a question come in about the flower color on the Magnolia from Pender Nursery.
The flower color from the one from Pender Nursery. Okay, yeah, the Stellar Ruby is a really dark red burgundy color. It's and about 1.5 inches wide. And also, I made a mistake. This is the wholesale Fairview Nursery, which I do that all the time. I made that mistake. They are wholesale. This is not Fairview Nurseries. Is it from Penders? The Magnolia Stellar Ruby is being grown by Penders. Yes. Yes. Correct me if I got that wrong.
No, that was correct.
Okay.
And the Serendipity from earlier was from Carroll's Plant Center.
Serendipity from Carroll's Plant Center, yes. All right. Oh yeah, please, if other folks do retail that I didn't mention, it says we've got a great thing saying Adcox and Watson's do retail. If other places do as well, tell me. I usually deal with people on their wholesale side, so I'm not entirely sure everybody who does retail.
Question was asked if this will be on YouTube to review. Yes, we will post on YouTube on the JOCOPlants YouTube page tomorrow. However, it is only available for credit today. So if you are a landscape contractor, irrigation contractor, landscape architect watching for credit, you get credit for it today. But anybody who reviews after that is for informational purposes only, just because that is the rules by the state boards.
Any more questions or comments?
Mark, I don't know if you saw this one, but someone asked if the Elysium Scorpio will have the funky smell in spring like the Aztec fire does.
Yes. I wish I could say no, and normally I can beg off that because because my sense of smell is so terrible, but when it was first being introduced a year or two ago at the Green and Growing show, several people had nice big large ones in full flower, and I think some of the nurseries that had them, or maybe their neighbor booths, were regretting it because they did have a bit of that funky smell. I've not gotten that on the Scorpio, and on the, you don't get that on the Florida Sunshine so much, but it doesn't last long, and it's not one of those smells that kind of wafts throughout the garden. And at the trade show, we were all enclosed, so it didn't have a chance to disperse, but yeah, they do have a little bit of that fishy kind of smell.
Any other call for questions on the plants?
And I will make one plug for the Arboretum. We just put out our 2020 slightly COVID themed JC Raulston Arboretum t-shirts that are available at, you can go to jcra.ncsu.edu swag
Later today.
later today. It's so new it isn't even up yet. You can email me and ask me for that again, but it's a pretty funny shirt. And over the breast pocket is our lovely front entrance gate closed, and then some fun pictures on the back. So
That is a great plug. We had one last plant question. Somebody wanted to know if the Murray Leyland Cypress is resistant to Seridium canker.
It is certainly more resistant than most of what we have out there right now. It's I don't know if there's going to be anything that's going to be 100% Seridium resistant, but yes, it is quite fungus resistant. So it should be a good one.
And I'm sorry, we had one last one just because we have the plant expert on the line. So someone's wondering if the Red Bud Rising Sun, they're having trouble with it, that there's lots of brown foliage, and what could be wrong or needing help for clients.
Brown foliage. It could be that it's too dry. There is a little worm that'll get in there and kind of fold up the leaves and chew on them, which can kind of make them look brown. I don't know other than that, unless I'd check the trunk down near the ground, make sure it wasn't planted too deep or hadn't been chewed up by weed eaters. Feel free to send me some pictures of the foliage and whatnot and situation. I'll see if I can help out more with that.
Plant clinic.
Yeah, and you can go to NC State's plant clinic as well. That's another good spot. But yeah, there's occasional borers on Cercis, but very rarely.
I want to thank Mark and Chris for their time again today and helping make this possible on behalf of the Johnston County Nursery Marketing Association. We'll have this up on our YouTube channel tomorrow, in addition to our new nursery tours that are there. And we want to thank everybody for participating in our virtual event.